welcome back to another episode of the Kate Hamilton Health Podcast. So, have I got a menopause treat for you today? Today, I interview Catherine O'Keefe. Catherine is Ireland's first menopause coach, a workplace wellness consultant, and the founder of Wellness Warrior, a platform dedicated to changing the conversation around perimenopause and menopause. She's also the creator of the annual Menopause Success Summit, author of the best-selling book All You Need to Know About Menopause, and host of the Menopause Uprising podcast. With a background in banking before retraining in health and wellness, Catherine brings a unique mix of corporate insight, evidence-based health expertise, and lived experience. She works with women in a group setting and has advised hundreds of organisations on creating effective workplace menopause policies, bridging the gap between awareness and real support. Her advice is grounded, practical, and empowering, focusing on evidence, lifestyle, and open conversation to help women navigate menopause with confidence, clarity, and choice. This was just such an empowering conversation. We really kind of get into the depths of symptoms, those early symptoms, what we should be talking to our doctor about, what we should be knowledgeable on, who we should be listening to in relation to this narrative. We talk about like the misinformation that's out there around menopause. We talk about a lot of the fear, that comes with the impending thoughts of menopause. We talk a lot about what to do and what to focus on as you are experiencing menopause symptoms. And we talk a lot about the empowering side as well, what perimenopause forces you to do. As Catherine says, it's about getting in under the bonnet, stopping, giving yourself the time, the space to really look at what is going on in your life, what is going on in your body, and what is the first step to take. And she talks a lot about not overwhelming yourself with too much. What is the biggest obstacle? Let's deal with that, then move on to the next. I loved every minute of this conversation. I'm so excited to share this with you because I really genuinely believe that this is going to help so many people. And Catherine is so passionate about what she does, and I'm just so grateful to her for the work that she has done around menopause, and I'm so excited to share this with you, so enjoy. Hi Catherine, welcome to the podcast.
Hi Kate, thanks for inviting me on.
Thank you for coming on, and I know you're going to share a lot of expertise that you have around perimenopause and menopause, and I really can't wait to pick your brain about everything surrounding this topic. But before we get into it, would you like to just share a little bit for anyone who doesn't know who you are, what you do, and a little bit of background of what's got you there?
Sure. So I guess really it's my own experience of perimenopause that brought me to the work that I do now. And when I went, head first into perimenopause back, a good few number of years ago now, like nobody, there was very few voices talking about menopause at the time. And I remember like probably one story I share a lot, I did a TEDx on, is I was away with some of my college friends. We went away for a weekend to Copenhagen, to the Christmas markets. And I was only, 44 at the time. And I kind of felt I had a bit of spotting before we left Ireland and didn't think too much of it, yourself. I kind of had my sanitary pads, Tampax, whatever, like. On the first night, we went out to dinner. It's this really cool restaurant, very, Danish, kind of white and very pristine. And I was kind of feeling, oh God, there's something not right here. And literally I'd say, oh God, I don't know if I'd even eaten the starter. I flooded out in the restaurant. The flooding is very, very common in perimenopause in particular. And that's where your period comes on really quickly. So you can imagine now, like, 4 girls out, kind of dressed up nicely. I kind of, we were in a restaurant. I had a top on me and I had to put my jacket around my waist to cover my trousers because I was absolutely destroyed. But then it was like, even then I came back, I had scans and everything done, absolutely nothing wrong with me. It was full on perimenopause and my periods were just getting a lot heavier. But what I found was like, at that time, loads of my friends were like, no, sure, we're too young. Like, and that's hot flushes and it's not all of this other stuff. And I had gone back to college, I'd studied natural medicine. So women's health was really, I guess, something I was really passionate about. So that was it. I really embarked on kind of, okay, like what is going on here? I was working in the bank at the time. You know, the flooding was a real issue. The following 3, 4 months after that incident, I went nowhere. I mean, nowhere, like not even to the supermarket without having towels in the car, a backup in case something happened. I was petrified it'd happen again. Now, I was lucky it stopped. I did intensive acupuncture. It stopped within 3 to 4 months, but it's so common. And like when I'm in workplaces, that's the one thing, you know, women will always say to me, oh my God, that's happened to me, or, you know, whatever. So that was the start, really. And I found, you know, as I said, the conversation around menopause was non existent. So I started blogging, and then, you know, one thing led to the next. I left the bank, basically set up my own business, and really concentrated on helping and educating women in Ireland and in other countries as well. But I guess a big role then for me was the advocacy work that I did in Ireland in terms of progressing menopause, you know, with the government, you know, the national campaign that happened. I was part of the Women's Task Force, all of that. So, you know, where we are now compared to where we were 10 years ago is night and day. Menopause, you know, it doesn't raise an eyebrow as much in some circles, it still does, but we have made a great leap forward in terms of that education piece. But we've a lot to do, though, still have a lot to do.
Yeah, and it is actually amazing how much things have come on in recent years. Like 10 years ago, and I know 10 years ago I was 10 years younger and it wouldn't have been on my radar, I suppose. But like, you know, the work that you do and that others have been doing as well, it's just such an amazing service to women to be able to be like, we have this, we've access to this information now, we've access to the support. But what I'll say here is you've actually blown my mind. This flooding out, I've never heard of it.
Oh, yeah. 1 in 10, Kate, 1 in 10 women will experience flooding. And flooding is really common in perimenopause because that's where things all start to go askew. So the periods, maybe you're going 6 weeks, then you're going maybe 7 weeks, then it's 3 weeks. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
Obviously, what happens then, the longer you're going without a period, the lining of the uterus is just going to keep building up, and then that has to shed. It has to go somewhere. So what would have happened to me was that the lining was building up and then it shed, but it got to a stage where it was just a very quick shed. Obviously, that leads to issues with iron. It can lead to you being anemic, which, as you know yourself, tiredness, exhaustion, dry skin. There's loads of symptoms of being anemic that look very similar to perimenopause as well, but it's really common. Perimenopause really, it's like a tornado in terms of what happens in the body. But once it starts that whirl, it can just impact so many other parts of the body, like, you know, from, as I said, iron, you know, B12, then of course all the symptoms that come along with it. But flooding is a big one, and it's a huge challenge in workplaces. It will be the one symptom that anyone who is having heavy periods, you know, will be very, very conscious in work that they have backup, as in, you know, they have extra clothes, they have loads of sanitary products. And that's why I would, you know, all the workplaces I work with, the majority of them now would have free sanitary products. But of course, free sanitary products are fantastic, but you know, there's a continuum there, because what might work for a woman in her 20s or 30s can be very different for what you might need when you're in your 40s and into your 50s, you know. And that's something that's it. There can be an education piece there as well in workplaces.
So we're talking about a significant amount of bleeding all in
Yeah.
one go. That a sanitary towel or even a
No.
night one or whatever, nothing is going to
No,
hold it.
no,
Yeah.
it will not hold it. Like, you're talking major clots, you're talking heavy bleeding. When that happened to me, I destroyed the seat I was sitting on. I destroyed my clothes. It happened to me another time. I remember I was getting out of the car. I was just coming home from work, and the clots were so big. It was like lumps coming down through my trousers. It was that heavy. The thing is, you do have to be very careful there. You have to make sure that you are having scans, that sometimes it could be fibroids, it could be something else going on there. But heavy periods are so, so common in perimenopause. And a key part is, like, when you look at the hormones of menopause, you know, estrogen, progesterone. I kind of park testosterone on its own, but estrogen, progesterone is declining, but progesterone is the trigger for the uterine lining to shed. So if you're not having that balanced supply of progesterone to estrogen, then you are going to run into issues. What can happen is it can lead to endometrial hyperplasia, and that's basically where the lining of the uterus just thickens and it becomes too thick. And that can be where many women might go in and they'd have a D&C done to clear it out. Maybe then afterwards, the recommendation might be marina coil, something like that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that information because I think back to what you're saying about that story of you being out with your friends. That must have been absolutely terrifying in the moment. Like, would have ruined your holiday and be like, oh my God, I'm dying. There's something serious wrong here. Well, I know I'm a little bit of a catastrophizer, but if that was to happen to me and I didn't know,
Yeah.
my mind would go,
Yeah.
oh my God, something is seriously wrong. And I know it's really important that we go and we get everything checked anyway, but to be able to rationalize, okay, deep breath, we'll go get this looked at, and this could be something that is part of the parcel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very practical person in terms of if you have a pain, get it checked out. I don't want to spend time, worrying, thinking, oh my God, is it X, Y, or Z? I'm like, no, just get it checked out. As in, get the scan done, rule out. So I ruled out there was no fibroids, there was absolutely nothing. And so it is really important that you're doing that. And that's where it's very, very important for all women to have a doctor on board who's part of their team. Like I don't mean a doctor who's going to talk down to you. I want a doctor who's my doctor, who's going to support me in my journey. Because if you look at perimenopause all the way through to postmenopause, it's years, Kate. It's
Mm,
years. You're going anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12 years. So you need support there that is with you for that whole journey. So I'm very, very lucky. I don't have a menopause specialist, just my regular local doctor. She is excellent in relation to women's health, and we have a fabulous relationship, but she's been with me all the way along. So she would be very much like, okay, we just get a scan done. So it's very much to me, there's enough worry, fear, anxiety in our lives. And I always kind of think if you can take a practical step that will reduce that, then go for it. I'm all for
yeah.
that.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm so glad that you've said this because I've spoken to a lot of women on this topic, a lot of experts on this topic. And one common theme that seems to shine through is that a lot of women don't feel heard.
Yeah.
And oh, it's just perimenopause, oh, it's just, and that they have to really advocate for themselves. And unless you really know what you're talking about, like, you can question yourself, be like, am I being a bit of a drama queen? Am I actually okay? Am I, you know what I mean? And a lot of women, like, who already look after everyone else except and leave themselves to last, they brush off these symptoms that really they shouldn't.
100%. I mean, we talk about the caring role in a minute, but where we were 10 years ago, oh my God, like I would get emails on the hour from women who weren't being listened to by their doctors. That has reduced. It's not gone. It's definitely not gone. It's still there as an issue. I think we have a lot more doctors now who are trained. We've got an active Irish Menopause Society headed by Dr. Brenda Moore and Dr. Quiva Hartley, who are amazing in this space. But there's a cohort of doctors there who are fabulous, but they're a group. And then there's so many other doctors that have to have the right training. Now it is happening, but a lot more does need to happen. Is there a woman right now who's sitting in a doctor's surgery and she's not being listened to? 100% there is, 100%. And the only way I encourage women to kind of get over that hurdle is be empowered, have the knowledge, have the education, because once you know what you're talking about, you can't let anyone fob you off. You have to be able to stand your ground. Now that's very easy for me to say, but I know if you're in the throes of perimenopause symptoms and you're being hit by sleep, anxiety, rage, frustration, you might go into a doctor's surgery and you're like, oh my God, I just can't be bothered because you don't have the energy. But it
Yeah.
is really important to muster up that energy and fight for yourself because you know your body better than anybody else. Anybody
Yeah.
else. And you have to make sure that you are being listened to. Like in this day and age, no woman should be suffering in silence going through menopause, not given the resources we have now, the management options we have now, and the medical aspect of it. That's only one part of it. There's no magic bullet to perimenopause, to the whole journey. It's a matter of bringing it all together into, I always say, it's developing your own menopause toolkit that works best for you. But a key part of that is going to be your doctor. Now, if it is that you're not going down, non-hormonal medications or HRT, your doctor is still a key part of your journey, because you still have to keep on top of other nutrients in your body, etc., blood tests, your overall health, your DEXA scan for your bones, because otherwise, like, you really don't know what's happening. And the chances are any woman, majority of women going through at some stage, will come to a stage where blood pressure goes up, where cholesterol goes up as well. And these are all conversations that you should be having with a doctor who's part of your team.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think, we don't have an excuse of not having access to the information anymore. Like, the information is out there. There are amazing people like yourself out there offering free education, free information all the time. There's podcasts, there's articles, everything is there and it's really accessible.
Just one thing on that, though. There is also, and I think it's important to acknowledge this for your listeners, is there's a huge amount of misinformation. There's a huge amount of overwhelm. So what I see now is there's a lot of, and there are doctors out there who don't agree with other doctors. And this creates argy-bargy on global social media. That's very, very prominent. Obviously, I would know, the global players. I've colleagues, friends in all, countries that are supporting menopause. So I have an insight into what's happening globally, but not everybody does. And that is actually dangerous, because there's so much misinformation at the moment in relation to menopause. And what that leads to is overwhelm. So I would see a huge amount of women who are just overwhelmed by the information, like, is testosterone good or bad for me? What should I do? Should I take it? Shouldn't I? HRT, what are body identical, bioidentical? What do these mean? It's all of this. It's partly jargon, but it's partly messaging that's being created from certain accounts too, that can be very, very dangerous. And just because somebody is certified, like, is a doctor, it has a medical background, etc. I'm not talking about any of our Irish doctors. That doesn't mean you cannot question the information that they are presenting. And it's really, really important we stick to evidence-based information, particularly at this point in time, because there's so much misinformation out there. Two great examples of that would be, number one is dementia. So my mum passed away just a couple of months ago from Alzheimer's. So it's an aspect I'm hugely interested in. I know Dr. Lisa Mosconi. I reviewed 2 of her books for her before they were published. She's a forerunner in this work. But what's really important is that, the work that Lisa and her team are doing, it's a work in progress. She still has a lot of work to do to get to her goal in terms of the impact of estrogen on dementia. We know it impacts, but what we do not know, there is no strong, ongoing, large-scale study, research out there that tells us that HRT prevents dementia. It does not exist. It doesn't exist. Now, I could go on to Google and I could probably find some small randomized study that might indicate something. It's too small. It needs to be something bigger that would really kind of say, yes, HRT prevents dementia. But at this point in time, we do not know that. The research that's been done by Lisa and many others, it's not there right now. And that's something we really have to be mindful of. Like I always say to people, look, I'm a daughter of Alzheimer's. If the first mention of anything, I'll be sharing it with everybody.
Yeah.
Once that research is there, it isn't there. Similarly, if you look at testosterone, There's a lot of, sometimes it comes across, again, misinformation that testosterone is the wonder drug. That, okay, estrogen, progesterone maybe didn't resolve all your problems, your symptoms. Sure, move on to testosterone. And then someone takes testosterone, they're like, well, that did nothing. you know,
Yeah.
so for some people, testosterone can show improvements, but for others, it doesn't do anything. And the clinical evidence, again, behind testosterone is that it should only be used for incidences of low libido. Anecdotally, some women might say it helps with energy and tiredness and maybe brain fog. It's anecdotal. The studies behind that, the research is not big enough. So, as you know yourself, women's health is an area that has been massively underfunded, under researched for years. So, only until we kind of catch up on that will we really be in a place to, kind of dispel all of these questions around, different aspects of menopause.
That's such a good point because I think it's a huge issue across the board with social media,
Yeah,
with the access to
yeah,
information. Like if I look at if like when you're talking about it in relation to menopause, I'm thinking about it in relation to nutrition and being like, yeah, there's a hell of a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
misinformation out there. And what people will do is they'll take little snippets of certain studies and they'll create it into their own narrative. I think it's a
yeah.
really, really good point that your source, that yes, you can take in information, but scrolling through TikTok, which might be how people found myself or yourself, isn't necessarily the best way to find your trusted source, that you can take in information but that you need to, when you're doing your research, it needs to come from a trusted source that is, as you said, evidence based. If there's a woman listening now and they're like, look, I think I have a few symptoms going on, I really want to do a little bit more research. I want to find out what I should be expecting, what I should be doing, what are the options before I go to my doctor. Where is the best place for them to source this information where they can feel comfortable that they're not being misled?
Well, obviously, I'm going to say my own accounts
Yeah.
because it's the one thing I am very, very passionate about is that the information is evidence based and, 100% as up to date as possible as it can be. So that's certainly a starting point. I think after that, we don't have in Ireland, we don't have great resources that you can kind of look to. There is information on the HSE websites, and actually, I think there might be a booklet on the HSE website that could be, worth looking at. But I think the starting point, I would say, is a symptom checker. Now, you can either download that from my website, you can add it to your show notes, Kate, or, it's a copy of my book, which is the A to Z of menopause, basically. But I would say you're not sure what's going on, start with a symptom checker, because once you look at the symptom checker, which generally you're looking at 50 plus symptoms of perimenopause all the way through to postmenopause, that will give you a fair indicator. Okay, there's something going on here. But what you then have to be really mindful of is you do have to look at what age are you? For example, if you're 40, 41, which wouldn't be the average age of perimenopause, but we are seeing a lot of people going through into perimenopause earlier. The average age is 45. But let's say you are 40, 41, or maybe even 39, and you feel you're ticking a lot of the symptoms on the symptom checker, then it might be that you go to your doctor and you'll have a conversation with your doctor, but one of the things, the first thing you should be doing is ruling out any other underlying
Yeah.
condition, because you could have a B12 deficiency, you could have a thyroid issue, you could have an iron issue, you could have a vitamin D deficiency, you could have a folate. I mean, the list is endless. There could be many other underlying conditions that look like perimenopause. And all of the ones I mentioned are ones that have symptoms that are very similar to perimenopause. So due diligence really is just ruling out, okay, there's nothing else there. Okay, well, then you are looking at it walks, it talks. This is perimenopause.
Yeah, yeah, and so important. It does all start with that research of getting the bloods, what actually is going on if you feel off at all. Like interesting that you say that. Like I'm 39, so like I at the minute I'm still like on a personal level. If we're talking about myself as an example, my periods would still be very regular, which is great. But I've noticed little changes in the past year where I never really suffered with PMS beforehand. I now find myself quite emotional, quite up and down, quite low a couple of days, that kind of week before my period, which I never experienced before in all my years. Another thing is, getting little chin hairs here and there where I'm having to start to pick out, and I'm like, oh, great, so it's starting. But, in general, and I know in general I feel well, and, I'm lucky that I'm in a position. I talk to a lot of people, I interview a lot of people around this. I study as much as I can around this, that I know, like, I'll know when it's time to go to the doctor. But for anyone listening that is kind of in the position I am, 39, 40, up to, under 45, let's say, might be starting to notice a few symptoms. What tend to be, I know this is such a general question. I know as I say it, you're going to be like, how long is a piece of string? What kind of things do people experience? What are the first early signs for a lot of
Yeah.
people? I just wanted to interrupt the podcast for a moment to talk to you a little bit about Kate Hamilton Health online coaching. So we have two coaching options available. We have our elite coaching and we have our group coaching service. Our elite coaching service is bespoke, individualized coaching, which will help you to finally break free from diet culture with one-to-one anytime support from your coach and with access to a safe, supportive community. This is a higher ticket coaching option, and the coaching is by application only. If you go to my website, katehamiltonhealth.com, you will be able to apply for elite coaching through there, and we will be in touch to organize a call and to get you up and running. In relation to our group coaching starts on the first Monday of every month. When it's full each month, we do close the doors. With the group coaching is about building the habits, body, and energy of the healthiest version of yourself and finally make it stick. We include personalized calories and portions, food lists, recipes, meal plan ideas, step goals, home or gym-based workouts, depending on what you want, changed every 8 weeks, mindset work, app access. So that's the Kate Hamilton Health app, which will be your hub for everything. Weekly yoga classes, WhatsApp group community, weekly group Q&A with myself, fun challenges, daily habits form, weekly self check-in, fortnightly check-ins with your coach, a library full of lifestyle guides, a library full of lessons, seminars, and all of this is updated regularly. We have weekly group Zoom calls with myself and the team, regular guest seminars where we get experts on to talk more to you about different topics that we need experts on for. And then we have in-person events twice a year that you will get at a major discount as being a member of the Kate Hamilton Health community. So, as I said, this starts the first Monday of every month. If you go to my website, katehamiltonhealth.com, you will see when the next group coaching intake is starting for you. So we close the doors as soon as that intake is full or the Monday before the group coaching starts. So usually that last Monday of the previous month. So if you head over to katehamiltonhealth.com, all of that information that I've talked through is on the website. You'll be able to book your spot for the next intake there. And I will chat to you all then.
No, that's a good question. Just one thing to say, read the bloods. And I mentioned quite a few things on the bloods, just to be very careful, because this is hot right this week on social media, is you don't need to get your blood tests to measure your estradiol, your progesterone, your testosterone at this stage. The only time that really you're delving into that, it really is if there's an absorption issue with whatever form of HRT possibly you're on and you're not seeing a relief of symptoms. It's just to clarify that, because at the moment there's a lot of conversation around the Dutch hormone tests that can be done. I'm not a supporter of it at all, because hormones, like Kate, our hormones from 8 o'clock this morning to 8 o'clock tonight, they're going to be different. They're going to be different on a Monday to a Wednesday to a Friday. So just to clarify that in relation to blood. So when I'm looking at the bloods, I'm really looking at nutritional, mineral, kind of vitamin deficiencies that might be there. So what are you looking for? I would basically say if you're coming into that terrain of 39, 40, this is where I would start to pay attention to your bloods. This is where I would get into the habit of having regular bloods done. Maybe it's you get it done 1 year, then it's 2 years after, whatever.
Sorry to interrupt. Are the GP bloods, do we have to ask for anything specific? Or if I just go to my GP, which I do once a year in the past couple of years, and be like, I just want to get my bloods done? Will they test for all of this automatically, or do I need to specifically ask for anything?
They should test for everything. The only one, which is unfortunate at the moment, the GPs aren't testing for is vitamin D because they're assuming we're all low. But it's a really good thing to know your vitamin D level because it's a massive range. So if I'm in my 50s and my vitamin D level is 20, sure, that's rubbish. In my 50s, I need my vitamin D level to be much higher. I need to be looking at 60, 70. So understanding that kind of range and personalizing it, individualizing it back to you is really important. But a lot of the doctors aren't doing vitamin D. You can certainly ask, but all of the others should be included as standards.
Okay.
So, I would get into the habit of know your bloods, understand your bloods, because then you'll start to see the changes when they happen. Now, really good point you said, you were saying there is like your periods are still regular. So the first thing I would say to anybody listening, please don't just look at your periods. Way more is happening before the periods start to change. So everything you said there, Kate, is a very clear indicator your progesterone is starting to decline because you're getting the PMS, you're getting those PMT-like symptoms beforehand, the mood changes, etc. So that's happening just before the period comes on. It's very classic in perimenopause that PMS-like symptoms return if you had them before, or they start to make an appearance. And that's where you can, maybe you feel that your breasts are a little bit more tender a couple of days, your periods, there might be other things that come into play. I would certainly be, the first place I'd always look, how are you? How am I? How are you feeling? Because progesterone decline will impact your mood. It will impact how you're feeling. And at the same time, like you've estrogen there, which is giving us this lovely energy and vitality. So as the two of them start to go out of kilter, that's where everything hits the fan. I was going to use the word, but I won't.
You can use whatever word you want.
Everything shit hits the fan, like because they go out of kilter. They're not happy because they're vying for attention the whole time in our menstrual cycle. So you're seeing what I would say is probably, unless there's any B12 deficiency or anything else going on there.
Which there isn't, because I've just had bloods done.
Okay, well there, yeah. And so I would definitely say you're starting to see that waiver that starts to happen in early perimenopause. And in a lot of cases, many women won't be aware of that. But it's so you're looking at what's happening before my period, what's happening around then. Then how quick is my period coming on? Am I spotting for a day or two more than I did before? Again, a clear indicator progesterone is declining. Or am I going straight into a period? That's kind of your normal menstrual flow, is you go straight into a period. Maybe you spot for a day or something, but you shouldn't be spotting for 4 or 5 days. That's kind of that shouldn't be happening. You should be going into a full flow period for a couple of days and then coming out the other end. So that all starts to shift when you come into perimenopause. And it's a bit like taking the foot off the brakes, everything kind of stalls, starts again, that type of thing. But remember, that's going to happen so slowly over weeks and months. And that's why in a lot of cases, a lot of women mightn't even think anything of it, but it's all happening in the background. More often than not, what is starting to happen though is there starts to be a little increase in anxiety. It's that maybe you're nervous a little bit more, maybe you're fearful about things, you're worrying a little bit more than you did before. Maybe your sleep isn't as deep and refreshing as it was before. They would tend to be the real indicators that things are starting to shift. And then, of course, that'll be subtle for a while, but then it can become very obvious. Now, that will differ if you have anyone who's on the Mirena coil, they will be getting progesterone. So you might find for someone on the Mirena coil, the average age of perimenopause is 45 to start. They might notice anything till 46, 47. They could be that little bit older. So again, it's very individual. No two people on the planet are going to have the same experience of menopause because we're all different.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the symptoms,
Yeah, that's so interesting. And in relation to the coil, because actually this is
Mhm.
something that I've thought about. I don't have the coil and I've thought about it. I'm like, oh, if these symptoms are starting to happen, is
Yeah,
that something that I should introduce now? Or am I better to feel like I'm very in tune with my cycle? I'm very like, I'm on it. Like I know what's happening in my body. Am I better to stay kind of connected with that? Or am I better to like get the coil early and, you know, I don't know.
that's a great question, because that leads me to, another aspect. I find now we're hopping onto HRT very quickly, very quickly. And listen, I'm a supporter of HRT, 100%. I take transdermal. I use transdermal estrogen myself, but I only started to use it probably, God, 52 maybe, or something like that. 53 even, maybe. No, 52, I think. What I'm seeing now is that a lot of women are going straight onto HRT very, very quickly. Whereas what I would say is, I'd like to see what's happening first. So, for example, like for you, you don't know how your body, remember, 25%, 1 in 4 women will go through menopause with no symptoms. I meet them the whole time, Kate. So they do exist. I'm not making them up.
My mother claims to be one of those women, but I don't think she is. I think because you know the way people will say, "Ask your mother her
Yeah.
experience. When did she start?" I'm like, when I asked my mother, did she when she started going through menopause? She'd be like, "Oh, I didn't notice until my periods were gone. I was grand." And me and my sister are like, "Yeah, of course you were. We remember those
And
crazy years."
I do hear that a lot as well. I'm like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
But a lot of women do go through with no symptoms. So it's important to remember that you don't know what's going to happen. I think there's an aspect where maybe it's social media. I don't have the answer to this yet. But I do think there's an aspect where women are feeling like the minute they experience anything, they have to go straight on to HRT. And that's not the case. Not every woman should or will need to be on HRT. That's a fact. That's a fact. So it's really important to kind of understand, how am I doing? I always kind of say, depending on how you're feeling, maybe it's every 6 months, maybe it's once a year. It's a full check in with yourself. Maybe it's printing off your symptom check or going through it. How am I actually doing? If you're doing, and your bloods and whatever, if you're doing great, then fantastic, keep going. If you're starting to see, okay, things are shifting, okay, well then, how are they shifting? Are my symptoms mild? Are they moderate? Are they severe? But if they're mild, then I want to think, okay, what will I do with my lifestyle? How's my sleep? How's my food? How's my energy? My movement? Look at that first. And any good menopause trained doctor will be having that conversation with you too if your symptoms are mild. Now,
And this is where I slot the likes of me slot in. This is the work that I do around lifestyle, and and it'll take you a certain amount of the way.
100%. And for not all women, but for many women, it may be that it's just lifestyle, but it's you have to remember, it's like so many women, it's not just about what they eat or their movement or their sleep or anything. It's also what's going on in my life. So many women will think that, HRT is the magic cure. It is not. There is no magic solution to menopause. It does not exist. We'd be billionaires if it did. It doesn't exist. You have to individualize it to what's going on in a person's life. And then it's bringing it all together. So it's the lifestyle piece, it's the medication if you need it, it's the complementary therapies. It's what works best for you. And there's no right or wrong way to support yourself through perimenopause. It's about finding what works for you. It's not what works for your mom. It's not what works for your best friend or your sister. It's what works for you. And that's really, really important, because we can get lost in the, oh, and so said I must do this, and so said I must do X, Y, Z. It has to be about you as an individual. I am so passionate about that in all the work that I do. It's understanding the individual experience of menopause. And if you look at that and you go back to, how do I know I'm starting perimenopause? Take time to know your body. Take time to understand what is your mental and emotional health like? Do you know when you're like, oh God, I'm just not myself? Maybe I lack in joy, I've lost a bit of zest. If that starts to happen, please don't ignore it. Like I am such a believer in, I'm merely walking a journey through life. I have this incredible opportunity to be on Earth. And my husband's obsessed with space, and I think it's hilarious because I'm like, I have no interest in ever going to Mars. He'd go in the morning. Whereas, no, but Earth is so beautiful. Anyway, I'm digressing there. But my point is, we have only one chance to live our lives here. And it really saddens me. And look, I talk to women every day, but it really saddens me when I meet a woman who is suffering, who feels that, they used to be vibrant and all of a sudden that kind of spark is gone and they haven't got the right supports in place. That's a shame. And it shouldn't happen. It really shouldn't happen. That's
I see
my
it all the time as well, Catherine. Like, and I think, some of it obviously will be to do with perimenopause, but a lot of it then is to do with lifestyle in general. I think that when you say that we need to check in with ourselves, or, that some women wouldn't notice, those early symptoms. And it's because we're so busy, we're so stressed, we're raising kids. Usually by the time we hit perimenopause, we've got teenagers, which are like I'm learning are like more stressful than toddlers in a lot of ways. And then, elderly parents.
yeah,
So a lot of women are raising teenagers and help and caring for their parents or dealing with grief or, so there's a lot of both going on at the same time, which adds to the stress and anxiety that is going to happen with the hormone imbalances. And then we're climbing the ladder, we're still paying mortgages. There's a lot at that stage of life, isn't there? That
yeah,
there's a lot that needs to be peeled back when I talk about, eating nourishing foods and, moving your body every day. And, yeah, everyone fucking knows that. You know what I mean? But it's actually being able to implement it, which is where
no,
where I love where my work comes in, helping women navigate, like peeling things back and getting back to basics and creating that space, not making
yeah.
time because there is no extra time, creating space in the chaos for you because you have to, because like your life does depend on it, really, doesn't it?
100%. And I think like that in a way, and I know you're equally as passionate about the work you do as I am. And I think I find it very humbling when I get to work with women and like that, it's just guiding them through the small changes that can help them navigate this journey because the caring role is huge. Women are the encumbered workforce. If you look at it, the majority, I'm not saying all, but the majority of men are the unencumbered workforce. And that is basically they go home and they don't have a second job. Whereas the majority of women go home and they do have a second job. They are looking after children. It's the caring role, whether it's aging parents, teenagers, toddlers, whatever it is. And I think particularly in perimenopause, because a lot of women are having children later as well, which means the chances are you can be hitting perimenopause and you might have young children. And of course,
Yeah.
all of that comes in and it is a perfect storm. When you look at the whole journey, perimenopause and postmenopause being just as important, it's a deeply psychological chapter in a person's life. And that is probably, I love that aspect of menopause, but I know it can also be very scary for people because it's like, think of it like a house. You have your foundations, you know what's in each room, you know what's happening every day, you're juggling it all, and it's hectic and it's full on. And symptoms start to come in. You're not sleeping, brain fog, vaginal dryness, libido, everything. And you're like, oh my God, this is so much. But then on top of that, an earthquake starts to happen and the foundations of the house start to shake. And all of a sudden you're like, actually, who am I? What am I doing? What have I done with my life? What's this about? Because you haven't, for the majority of women, they may not have had time to actually stop and think about themselves for a long time. And then, perimenopause comes in and it's coming in with this mission. I'm going to stir things up. I'm going to make you look in the mirror. I'm going to make you look and assess, am I looking after myself? Am I doing right by myself? It's a wake up call, 100%. The amount of women you talk to in perimenopause or at any stage, and particularly coming close to menopause, postmenopause, who will say, I'm a stronger, freer version of myself because you know what you want. And because you're like, no, I don't want to do that. So it's like, no. And you're very firm in your no. Relationships change, everything because of that destabilization in the surface that happens. Everything's up for grabs. And that as I said, it can be very scary, but it can be very empowering and it can be very freeing when you get to the other side of it. Now, I guess one of the big things with that is getting a handle on the symptoms. And I always say that, there is a freeing part of this chapter, but the underlying part is depending on the severity of your symptoms. Once you get a handle on those symptoms, if I'm exhausted and I'm not sleeping, am I going to want to look at my emotions and think about how I'm handling different situations? No way. I won't have the energy. I'll be like, go away. But if you get a handle on the symptoms and you
Then
have more energy, then it's like, okay, I can dedicate a little bit of time to look after myself. And maybe that is sitting, pondering, journaling, meditating, and my energy starts to come up. So, okay, now I can go for my walk, I can go for my cycle, I can go to the gym, I can do whatever because things start to shift. But it's like in those perimenopause years in particular, it's a bit like you're treading a swamp. It's tough. It's really tough until you get your toolkit together and you kind of understand this is what I need. This is what works for me. And now I know what works for me. Now I'm going to, work on, enhance, bring in this lifestyle piece. And I'm going to really go for this. And this is something I do a lot with women that I work with is the future proofing aspect of this journey of perimenopause, because everything we're doing, all the work you do with your clients in terms of lifestyle, everything that I'm asking women to focus on is because I'm looking down to when they're 80 and 90. And I want them to have strong bones. I want them to have clear brains. I want the cognition to be good. I want the heart to be good. So everything we do in the perimenopause years gives us an opportunity for future proofing our health for the later years. One of the greatest benefits of perimenopause is that opportunity.
that's so true. When it comes to like, if you're like in the depths of it and you realize, oh God, my symptoms, I think, I'm probably in the moderate to extreme range, and then you're hearing all these things, whether it be from me or from anyone, being like, oh, you need to be getting your daily walk in, you need to be this, and you're like, blah, like, and it's just overwhelm. I think, and even if, perimenopause aside, even if I'm just talking with someone who's starting on a weight loss journey, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're trying to do too much. It's literally just what, like, so in relation to as we're talking about perimenopause, what's your first big obstacle? What is causing the most disruption in your life first, and deal with that, and then on to the next? I would imagine. Would you agree?
100%. Yeah, I like someone would come to me. They'll say to me, "Here's 3, 5 symptoms." I'm like, no, no, no. One. Let's go with one. If you give me your 3 top symptoms. Now let's pick one, and we work on one first. So, for example, if you've someone and they might say to me, "It's brain fog, it's libido, it's sleep," I'll start with sleep
Yeah.
because that is the foundation of everything.
Yeah.
So
It's going to help with the brain fog a little
yeah,
bit
it
anyway.
will. Well, it will hurt. If you're not sleeping, you're not going to feel up for it. So it will help with libido as well, but it's really don't overwhelm yourself by trying to tackle more than one symptom at a time. If you tackle one at a time, you could be lucky that it will have a domino impact onto other symptoms. And I
Because a lot of them are intertwined, really, aren't they? Once you start
yeah,
tackling,
they are
they can be.
particularly, sleep, energy, and so forth. Some of the others, then, like the GSM, the genital urinary symptoms of menopause, they're not. They would
Right.
tend to be
Okay.
way more, localized, like vaginal dryness, urinary stress, incontinence, all that kind of stuff. They're going to be different, but it's not to say some things won't indirectly help as well. But I think, the physical side is one aspect, but it's the psychological that's the most challenging. The majority of women I talk to, they'll always say to me, give me a hot flush any day over the anxiety of menopause and the emotional upheaval that comes with the rage and frustration. I remember myself, Kate, in the early perimenopause years, like I would never have been, I'd be quite a calm person. All of a sudden, it was like, geez, who's that? It's just that frustration. And the frustration comes from when you're juggling too much and you're trying, that caring role comes into play. And then you've all of the hormones, and it's like, I don't know where to start. And that's frustration. And then the rage is like, that can come. You can have the calmest person, and all of a sudden you can go from 0 to 100 in nanoseconds. And you're like, after it, you're like, what just happened? And that's really scary if it's never happened to you before. And for the majority of women, what do we do when something like that happens? Oh, we load it on. We load the guilt on. The minute that happens afterwards, we just load the guilt on. And it's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Why did I do that? Why did I say that?
And it's losing trust in yourself, isn't it? Like it's kind of like I can't trust my body anymore. I can't trust my emotions. I can't trust
Mm,
myself. And it's funny, like I can relate to that as someone who in my early 20s suffered with really bad chronic anxiety, like daily panic attacks, did a lot of CBT around it, was on serotonin enhancing drugs for a good couple of years as well to help to get those symptoms managed. And thankfully I was through the CBT I was able to move forward stronger than ever in my life. But I remember just feeling like I just couldn't trust my body anymore. I couldn't
mm,
trust me. And I just felt so weak. Now, I know it's a really extreme example. I'm talking about mental health disorder here, but in relation to anxiety, sorry, first of all, what my point there is, that in menopause, when you have those kind of mood swings or really low moments or, things that you feel really out of control with, I can really relate to that feeling of just like, fuck you to your body and to your mind, and that just that frustration. But also in relation to menopause anxiety, it's interesting. I'm noticing little things starting to come back, and I'm like, oh, great. Do I have to look forward to going through all of that again now in my 40s? That'll be fun.
yeah,
Um,
and that is, unfortunately, we know that if you've had a kind of a history of mood disorders in the past, there is that chance that that will kind of destabilize again when you come into to perimenopause. I think what's real compassion is
mm,
underrated, but it is so important. And I talk a lot about weight and compassion because it's a huge part of the menopause journey. And, when it comes to our emotions, they can be so scary. But one of the most freeing things I did in my experience through perimenopause was actually just really going under the bonnet. I went back, I did counseling, and I really started to look at, okay, what's going on with me here? And I found that really freeing. And I found that, it really brought me to a place where I feel very confident in myself from a mental and emotional perspective. And I don't fear my emotions. Like, I would not have been an anxious person, but perimenopause brought anxiety. And that really shook my foundations because I was kind of like, geez, what's this about? I've never been anxious before. And that really impacted me at work. I always kind of say taking the bull by the horns and back to, it's being practical. I was like, okay, what's going on here? I need to understand what's going on here. And instead of running away from the emotions, I really started to kind of understand, okay, I'm angry now, I'm sad, why? And going underneath and just kind of, getting to understand what's happening there. And initially, that can take time, and initially it's can be scary, but once you get into the habit of doing it, it's enormously freeing. It really is. It's probably, for me, it would be that, and boundary work would be one, another of the two great gifts I believe perimenopause has given me, but I guess it's very different. It's very different for each of us, and it's always understanding the individual nature of the journey is really important. And, that's a huge part of, like, if we look at any of the symptoms, if we look at the psychological symptoms, if we look at, if we look at it from a weight aspect, we're in a very different, well, I hope, I'd like to think we're moving towards maybe a different landscape in relation to how we talk about body and body image. And I struggle and I get really hacked off when I see, women on social media who are, maybe promoting themselves as menopause advocates and so forth. But yet maybe their bodies aren't, I don't think their bodies are what we should be portraying our healthy, happy, content bodies in menopause. Because for me, it's any body size. And it's not that you have to be working out in the gym 50 hours a week and you have to have a super toned body. To me, yes, it's important for your bones and everything, don't get me wrong. But I think we also, happiness, being content in your body, to me, is far more important than anything
Oh,
else.
Catherine, I am so glad you said that because I am like blue in the face talking about this. And it is a real epidemic on social media where
Yeah,
women are being fed this
yeah.
picture of this perfectly
Mhm.
sculpted woman. And I am someone who moves my body every day. I do go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week. I enjoy lifting weights. I
So
do
do
believe
I.
it's
So do I. Yeah.
hugely empowering. I believe in eating a healthy, balanced diet, having a bit of things we enjoy in our lives, and that looks like a normal sized body. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
look like someone who's, ready for some sort of fitness photo shoot and I know people who are ready for fitness photo shoots and they are not healthy. I know a lot of women with no periods. I know like sorry, a lot,
Yeah.
let me rephrase, a lot of women in their 20s and 30s with no periods. A lot of really, really unhappy women, huge issues around food. So a
Mhm.
lot of what we're seeing on social media is not health. It is
No.
actually an eating disorder
A hundred,
and
a hundred, a hundred.
and mental health issues, like a lot of it. And
Yeah.
I try not to be too mean about it, but that is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think the sooner we can move away from that and look at what real health actually is, and it looks different on everyone.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, anyone who knows me, I love food. I mean, I just love food. I'm a huge foodie. I love and appreciate good food. So for me, like when I talk about weight and stuff, I'm always kind of saying, listen, if you're looking for that, you can't eat the carrot cake and you can't eat the 99 or whatever, don't follow me. Because, to me, it's like, it's everything in moderation.
Yeah.
But, food is so important. And food is so much more than weight. Food is community. Food is love. Food is family. Food is, loving your body, giving your body, nice food.
Yeah. And we do need to check our goals on that. And it's funny that I did an event there in May and I had Beatrice Caffrey come and talk about menopause. She's fantastic. She's a coach like myself. She's been through it herself. She's now in her 50s. But what she will always say to clients, like she works with them, health and fitness and fat loss, if you only have 5 kilos to lose and you are heading towards menopause, you don't need to lose body fat. You need to lift weights.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's what it
yeah,
is. It's not you need to eat at maintenance and you need to lift weights and your body will take good, healthy shape. And you will probably lose body fat as you're gaining muscle, but you don't need to be going into a calorie deficit.
no,
And I just
yeah,
thought that
oh,
was, wow,
yeah,
so
yeah.
true.
Like I started in the gym, I think I'm nearly 2 years now, and the change in my body, oh my God. I mean, I just love it. I absolutely love it. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs to go to the gym. There's a lot of exercises you can do at home, but I
Absolutely.
do it because obviously, like you, I work in this space. I'm very conscious of how important weight bearing and strengthening exercise is for my bones, but also for my cognitive health as well. Women lose on average 1.5 kg per year in perimenopause. So by the time you get to menopause itself, you're looking at 10 kg. And like you just said, exercise like the weight bearing and stuff, it's very different in terms of what it does to your body fat. But most importantly, women, we tend to be very weak upper body compared to men, and we don't tend to. How often do you see women doing exercises for their arms? Like, not as much as we should be doing, the average woman. And
Yeah.
that's where it's a game changer when you start to get that strength. And it's like, I just love the fact just seeing how my body has changed, particularly I think in the last year.
Yeah, no, and it makes such a difference. And to finish off on this point, then with the women that I work with that are going through perimenopause, and they're getting really frustrated with the scales. Even someone who's got a big long journey, and has about 3 or 4 stone to lose, and the weighing scales can just be, particularly I find over the age of 40, 45, depending on the woman, the weighing scales is just really, really slow. And they get so fixated on it. I have seen
Mhm.
women in the space of about 3 months lose about 4 pounds on the scales,
Mhm.
and they've dropped 2 dress sizes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I don't know whether you have anything you want to say in relation
I,
to that, because I'm always trying to convince people just because the scales isn't moving doesn't mean you're not dropping body fat and that you're not getting healthier. And like, just look at your photos,
yeah,
look at those loose jeans,
yeah.
and believe it.
100%. I'm all for go by the genes. The wave skills, it's just data. It's just information. Use it how it supports you. I don't know if you ever read the Gina Ford baby book that we read whenever they were babies. I remember I flung mine out the window in despair one day. It drove me so. It was literally 7 o'clock. Get up, have your shower. 7:15, eat your breakfast. 7:30, feed the baby. Like I remember I flung it out the window. But you know, it's the same with the weighing scale. Some people love it, some people don't. What I really, really saddens me is when I talk to those women who will say they hop on the weighing scales, it ruins their day, it ruins their week, it makes them feel shame, or it just impacts their mood. No time for it, throw it out. Just please don't do it to yourself. It's just data.
It
It's
means
much
nothing.
it's much better go by your jeans. That's what I do. I literally go by, I have 2 or 3 favorite pairs of jeans. As soon as they're getting tight, I know I have to cut down the carrot cake.
And like, also, yeah, like, we're looking at our jeans, like our clothes, but like, it's everything we've talked about in this whole episode. How do you feel? And
Yeah.
actually, a lot of, anyone who's not yet quite, like, a bit like myself, kind of getting closer to it, not quite there yet, get all these habits in place now to really give yourself a solid foundation. Doesn't mean that you're not going to, to experience, like, have your whole world, turned upside down. You may, you may not,
May not,
but
may not.
you may not,
Yeah,
you may not,
may
but you
not.
may.
Yeah.
But, or if you are experiencing symptoms and you are, seeking help from your doctor, the lifestyle stuff is also going to help with what you can manage, and focus, like, when you're measuring your progress, get away from the scales, focus on how you feel. Do
Then,
you have more energy? Do
yeah.
your jeans fit better? Do you have more, zest for life? And all of these things, like, it's amazing how much women dismiss how much the marker of progress that is actually is.
And what's really important there is you have to remember no medication, no complementary therapy, acupuncture, reflexology, whatever it is, HRT, non hormonal medication, none of them. None of them are get out of jail card for lifestyle. None of them. You have to do the lifestyle on top of it. If you want to stay healthy now and you want to stay healthy in your 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s, you have to do the lifestyle. It's a non-negotiable. And one thing I would just say, when we look at perimenopause all the way through, it can feel frightening, particularly if you're at the beginning. You might think, oh my God, what's ahead? But let's take a leaf from the Japanese way of looking at menopause. And they don't have a dictionary translation for the term menopause. They have a phrase called kanenkai. I'm a huge fan of Japanese way of thinking. Kanenkai loosely translates as renewal, years, and energy. In China, they talk about it as the second spring. So if we can reframe how we look at perimenopause, if we can start off and be proactive and kind of say, look, I'm going to roll up my sleeves. I'm going to do everything I can to support my body, to support myself through this chapter. Be empowered going through it. Have the knowledge, have the information, and look at it the way the Japanese do. It is a renewal. It is a shedding of old skin. Remember what I said, the deeply psychological nature of menopause. You are being pushed to shed maybe different things in your lives, or just to come out into a whole new you. The renewal years of menopause. And that is where we can really reframe and have a much more my experience of perimenopause up to date. I'm getting closer. I'm still in perimenopause. I'm getting closer to menopause. Yes, it's been a roller coaster. Yes, it's been challenging, but at every single junction, I've looked at it. What can I learn? What can I do? How can I tweak? How can I support myself? What does my body need? Constantly revisiting what's needed at every single turn, because what's needed in year one of perimenopause will be very different to year 6 or year 7.
Yeah. That's hugely empowering. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for coming on today and talking about everything that you've shared. Like, I think this has just been such a hugely beneficial conversation. I like there's so much more I could have talked to you about, but we'll wrap it there. For anyone who would like to, see what you have to offer and have a look at the work that you have done for menopause, and I believe you have a book as well. Where's the best place? Have you a website where
Yeah.
people find everything in one spot?
My website is wellnesswarrior.ie. Everything is there. I'm very active on Instagram and TikTok as well, and LinkedIn.
Perfect.
I do a lot of work in workplaces, but that would be LinkedIn. I'm Catherine O'Keefe. All of the others, I'm wellnesswarrior.ie. So yeah,
Perfect. And we'll share all of that. We'll
yeah.
share all of those in the show notes as well, so that people will be able to access, reach out. And good to know as well that you would do work in workplaces
Mhm.
around creating supportive environments.
It is, yeah. I do a lot around the education and awareness for employees, and then also manager and HR training as well. So it's great. More and more workplaces are opening up to not just menopause, but to menstruation and women's health as well. So that's an area I've been in since 2018, and I've worked with over 400 companies now, workplaces at this stage.
Yeah.
So it's fabulous, and it's fantastic to see the different journeys. And it's brilliant. Look, it's brilliant to see women getting the support that's needed in workplaces.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Thanks, Kate. Lovely to chat to you.
I just want to say thank you so much for listening to the podcast. And I would just ask for one thing from you. If at all possible, could you make sure that you subscribe to the podcast? It really does make such a difference. If there's a particular episode that you've enjoyed, please do share it in your WhatsApp groups, share it on your stories, tag myself and the guest in your stories. All of these things really do help to grow the podcast. And obviously, if there's anything you'd like to reflect on, please do leave a comment. It would mean the world to me, and I will see you on the next one.